Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fan Behavior, an F1 podcast. I'm Zoe. I'm here with Hannah.
Hi.
First race recap of the season.
Crazy.
We are back. I mean, we've been back, but we're officially back.
Race season is back.
Race season is back. Lot to get into.
Yeah.
Through just the race itself, the week itself. There's just a lot to dive into.
To unpack.
Yes. I do just want to say before we get into all of it, a quick thank you to everyone who has left us ratings on Spotify. We have passed the 800 Spotify rating threshold. Woo. So thank you to those who did that. Crazy. If you still haven't rated us on Spotify, we'd really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel,
please.
Trying to get those subscriber numbers up
the subs,
and keep watching us on YouTube, because as we've mentioned before,
it's the only way we make money.
It's our financial support system. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we'll get into this later, and I think we mentioned this before, but we're going to be starting every race recap week, I suppose. We're going to do a special YouTube only video that's going to come out the day after the race recap is put out. And we'll get into that. I can share that more later on in the episode. Anything else, housekeeping things you want to get into before we jump into the weekend at hand?
I did. Now that we're back to our race recap episodes, I did want to give Fifth Gear Garms a shout out. And a few weeks ago, I was doing a story or something, and I had my black McLaren beanie on, and today I'm wearing my white Williams beanie. I just really love their stuff. I've been asking for them to come out with beanies for a long time, and I wasn't the only one. They didn't just put them out for me, but I'm eternally grateful. But we have a coupon code, so if you go to fifthgeargarms.com, use code FANBEHAVIOR10, and you'll get 10% off. They have hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts. They also have started selling some really awesome artwork, and then they also have started selling the F1 children's books that Red Racer Books has put out, and they're really great. So check them out.
Yeah, I sent our friend Fev, who's been on this podcast, I sent her a McLaren beanie. And it was nice because she lives in Scotland, so shipping was a lot less expensive than it was to ship to the States, which was fun. All right, let's jump in to the race recap. For those who maybe haven't listened to our race recaps in the past, we just kind of go in chronological order. We start with if anything has transpired off the track during the week. We'll talk about that. Then we'll just get into kind of, notable talking points from practice, quali, the race, et cetera, et cetera. And then at the end, we take every race weekend. I'll post a story on our Instagram asking for questions, comments, concerns, where you guys can leave your thoughts or anything you want us to talk about. And so I will get to those at the end. We obviously have to debrief on our driver picks of the week, pick for next week's race. So much. Okay. There was quite a bit of off-track content to get into.
There was.
And we'll start with the positive stuff first. So a lot of paddle games that took place this weekend.
I love that that's become the off-track hobby.
Yeah.
It's just so many of them can do it at once.
Right. Well, it was fun because they were obviously all in Bahrain for testing last week. And so they were they all just were going to stick around for the race. And so they had just had a lot of free days to hang out and spend time together, which is always fun.
Like summer camp.
Yeah. The best, obviously, for me, and I'm assuming for you as well, was the Daniel, Lando, Max, Fernando paddle game.
I couldn't have written that myself.
It was just excellent. The photos, thank you to Lando Norris, who is just providing us with the content
that we deserve.
Yeah. I was overjoyed to see that. It was just, and I'm curious how they picked the teams. Did they say, was it kind of random? Oh, we're gonna just these two. Was it intentional?
Yeah,
an older guy and a younger guy.
Sometimes I wonder if they just if it takes any thought for them, or they're just we'll just do this.
Right. Yeah. But for those who missed it, it was Daniel and Lando and Max and Fernando. It was the kind of fun, silly guys versus the intense champions, world champions.
Yeah. So fun.
But I loved that so much. And then Oscar and Alex and Logan had their own little game. Alex so I guess Williams now has a podcast that they're putting out.
I saw that, yes.
And on said podcast, Alex said that Oscar was the worst paddle player. And then Oscar, in true Oscar fashion, came back with, receipts, proof of denial, I suppose, and shared a video of Alex completely missing a shot.
Yeah. Which, in Alex's defense, it's not the full context, like he might have had a bad shot, but that doesn't mean he's bad overall.
Sure.
But I do like...
You love the banter.
Yeah, and Oscar's just really good on social media with banter.
He's great
he learns it from his mother.
He does. He takes after his mother.
I didn't bring this up before, but should have been on Drive to Survive.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what they were thinking.
Well, Oscar, he really wasn't on Drive to Survive.
Fair.
So hopefully, maybe this year we'll get a Oscar in Australia, some sort of going back home, because he's from Melbourne.
Yeah, right.
So, and I don't know why they didn't do it last year, but
yeah, now that he's known and loved,
right, and established himself.
Yeah.
So that would be nice. Then we also got the 2019 rookies, Alex, George, and Lando going go-karting together. They raced each other. Alex and Lando did a little tag team.
Yeah, that was funny.
2-seat kart, which was very funny. I just love anything that has to do with. They've done a lot of content over the years with those three.
Yeah, they're really fun together.
They're really good together. They tease each other a lot. They know how to poke each other's buttons. it's just funny. I don't know.
They're the best.
Yeah, they've got great banter. And I wonder if, obviously there's not a chance that Lando could be George's teammate, but I'm curious about the Alex of it all in regards to being George's teammate, because that would be fun.
Yeah, it would be fun.
That would be an interesting pairing.
I agree.
All right, then we have to discuss the Christian Horner of it all. So obviously all of us know allegations were brought forth against Christian Horner for essentially, I don't know what was the official term, inappropriate behavior. I don't know what
or
the
inappropriate
actual
conduct or something like that. But it was,
essentially
it was so
sexual
vague.
harassment.
Yeah. Well, because when it first came out, I think the initial assumption when something like this happens for almost everybody is that it is sexual harassment of some kind. But the way they were framing it didn't really confirm if it was that, or if it was if it was he was just, it was a toxic work environment and he was being, non-sexual harassment. It wasn't very clear.
It wasn't clear.
But I think no one was shocked to find out that it was of the sexual variety.
Right. And an investigation was, then started taking place, which was, again, it's always interesting when they have an independent investigation, but it's sort of is it really independent? We're also not going to share anything about this investigation. We're not going to tell you anything about it's going to be totally under lock and key.
Which is so stupid, because you really think it's never going to come out?
Right.
Be for real.
And
have you ever seen one of these happen from the outside?
Right. And then, so it was very much so what's going to happen. Christian was at testing. He denied these allegations. And people were like, okay, time's a ticking. We need to know what's going on with this investigation. And then on Wednesday, Red Bull released a statement. It was very interesting because in all the headlines, they said Christian Horner cleared of allegations. But in the statement, they never said cleared of allegations. It was dismissed. So I'm going to read Red Bull's statement. Okay. The independent investigation into the allegations made against Mr. Horner is complete, and Red Bull can confirm that the grievance has been dismissed. The complaint has a right of appeal. Red Bull is confident that the investigation has been fair, rigorous, and impartial. The investigation report is confidential and contains private information of the parties and third parties who assisted in the investigation, and therefore we will not be commenting further out of respect for all concerned. Red Bull will continue striving to meet the highest workplace standards. So everyone was like,
sure, Jan.
Okay, just a little bit sus.
Yeah.
Sus. And I think what people, and I'm trying to go in chronological order here, then a lot of principals were asked about this situation, and I agree with them completely in what they said, and Toto Wolff, and I think actually Zach Brown also said this too, which was something like this deserves, it deserves to be transparent. We deserve to know what's gone on and what actually transpired, because it's a little bit, I don't know what the exact word is, but for a company to be like, so we just dismiss this, but we're not going to tell you anything that happened. Right. It's giving, you're hiding something.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
And like I think the way that Toto phrased it is basically just like, the transparency part is so important, because when you aren't transparent about it, not only do people then make assumptions that are way off base and could get really snowballed and like worse, but also like the truth's going to come out.
Yes.
And there's being transparent, or there's being transparent without having to reveal the confidentiality of who came forward.
Yes.
Which is that this is a sexual harassment allegation.
Yes.
That's what it is, period.
Yes.
You don't have to say who the person is.
Yeah.
You don't have to say who the third party investigators are. No one actually gives a shit about that.
Yeah.
What people are trying to understand is what these allegations are.
Yes.
Because if they're this serious, then what the hell? And also, like, anytime we get to a place where it needs to be investigated by a third party, there's an error. Like there's a problem. So how this has gotten like fully dismissed, I'll never quite understand. And again, I think that's the issues with we're not going to comment further. No. You're shooting yourself in the foot by not commenting further, and in a way letting us know how you got to this conclusion.
Yes.
Like, I'm not trying to have you reveal your whole, like, all the secrets and how this works, but there's evidence that has now been leaked, which I appreciate. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate. I think it's the real stuff, but I do appreciate all of the outlets that are saying this has not been, like, just really leading with this hasn't been verified, because I don't feel like...
Well, they don't want to get sued first.
Well, sure, but absolutely. But I also don't think that there's enough of that with predominantly like stateside journalism. Or it's like... at the very bottom, it's like, this is still an ongoing investigation, or like, this isn't verified or whatever. So I do appreciate that, but I don't know. To me, it's like, okay, so what about this evidence? Like, how did you get to the conclusion that he wasn't sexually harassing this person?
Right.
Or you need to say the truth of, like, it was settled outside of the investigation. I mean, I just think, because then in a way, like, okay, so we have this evidence, this stuff has happened. Sure, it's quote unquote not verified, but okay. You've just given everyone permission to do this. You've just told, and Red Bull specifically, you've just told all Red Bull employees that unless there is maybe like photographic evidence, or like you recording, can text message harass anyone you want, and it'll be fine. You'll keep your job.
Well, I mean, the truth is, though, unless you're in a powerful position like Christian Horner, where but and the other thing too is, you would think if you were Christian Horner and you truly believed in your innocence, that you would want the full story to come out, to fully exonerate you and the whole thing. And I feel this way, and anytime in Hollywood, whenever anyone gets sort of accused of anything inappropriate, anytime people are very sort of want to keep it private, secret, there's always a part of me that's like, okay, well, what are
you hiding?
Right. And as you mentioned, so then I think the following day there was a Google Drive of a lot of text message evidence, alleged evidence, that was sent anonymously to members of the paddock, journalists, the F1 president, FIA president, like everyone was receiving this information. I'm sure many people have seen the text messages and stuff, or the, unconfirmed texts. And obviously we're not going to sit here and like speculate on the validity and also talk about them specifically, because we don't know confirmed the facts or anything like that. But what I will say is, like, in a workplace, like, there's a code of conduct that one has to uphold if you work for any company. So while something may not be criminal,
sure,
it still violates...
You violated something.
Yeah, for your workplace. And you should not be working there anymore. And I just think this sends a really terrible message. This is my own personal opinion based off of what I believe. So I'm not speaking from like
the law.
Yeah. But I just think you're telling your employees, specifically your female employees, you're showing them that you're not really on their side, and you're not really there to protect them and support them. And I just feel really terrible for the woman involved. I feel like she, and I should say too, like after all these, alleged texts have come out, Christian's then gone to have meetings with, I think, the FIA president, and it's not over. I don't believe that this situation is over yet. Because it's pretty hard to come back from, if these are true, it's in my opinion, I don't see how he can come back from it. It's just a really shitty situation. And we have to have better practices in place to protect people who are not in positions of power, so that those in power can't get away with stuff, and those people get kicked out to the curb and are sort of,
because this girl had two options. She keeps her mouth shut and she endures a really uncomfortable workplace, or she says something and either risks getting let go anyway because it's easier, or they take it this far, she loses, quote unquote, and now...
And he keeps his job
because her name is out there. I don't even know what it is, and I don't want to know, because I just that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Her name should not be out there, because now if anything else is happening, like everyone's going to be afraid to say something. And it's so frustrating to me, because who knows how long she was like going through this for. She finally got the courage to say something, and now she's the villain.
Yes.
I'm so tired of that narrative that the woman is the villain for speaking up.
Yeah.
Like the amount of, I think I saw Irene was posting TikToks about this, like, and I didn't see a lot of the commentary, but the amount of comments like in the comment section of women specifically who were talking about how frustrating the situation was were abhorrent. And it's like, okay, so if this is someone who's really not involved in the situation at all, other than being like on the outside as a fan of the sport, blah, 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 making commentary, I can't even imagine the harassment now that this poor woman is getting.
I know.
Magnified by like 1 million.
I know.
Because she stood up for herself.
Yeah. It's a really like bad, like it's, just the conversation around all this is just really toxic. It's really negative. It's a really tough place for, especially if you're a woman trying to talk about this stuff, because the people that come out and are like, it's just not good. So anyway, ongoing, I'm sure we'll talk about this more in the future as stuff comes out or gets confirmed or whatever, but this is where we stand right now. And it's just, it's not great.
No, the whole thing is just really disappointing.
It's really disappointing. And
really
that's kind of that on that. Shall we get into the race weekend?
Yeah. I'm also just like pissed off because I've like genuinely started coming around to like not hating his guts.
I know.
Because of how much he like supports Daniel and like how good of, I really felt like he was such a good team principal, and like, ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
On like a billion levels.
Yeah. Anyway. And also just like, we just have to just...
Like, you have daughters, bro.
I know. Well, and even still, it's like there's been so many instances. I can't even like think of specific things, but just like these like things that have like come up on social media or things I've seen, or just like of just men being so just like the audacity of man, and it's just like,
it's fascinating.
Ugh, and almost so gross.
I would say there's probably like 60% of the time you see a man comment some BS on whatever, and you go to his profile, he's got like 3 daughters, has been married for his high school sweetheart, and it's like, are you who hurt you?
Yeah, it's a woman.
Yeah, I guess.
Or she stood up for herself and now he hates her guts. Anyway, okay, on to the race weekend. So just quickly run through practice. We did get a Daniel P1 in FP1. It was actually it was actually really funny because so FP1 was at like maybe 5:30 in the morning our time, and I obviously didn't wake up to watch it like live, but I typically wake up in the morning between like 6 and 6:30, and so I got up probably around 6:15, and I was like, oh, I'll just go on my phone and just see what's going on, listen to some of the commentary. And I'm sure many of us do this when you like jump into a session, you like immediately try to find your favorite driver like on the standings, And so immediately just go to like
the bottom.
Well, no, I go to like the middle. I'm like looking at around like P10, and you know, it's still early. I'm on my phone, and I'm looking for Daniel, obviously, and I'm like, oh, I don't see him there. And then my eyes go down to the bottom. I'm like, he's not there. And it probably didn't take me that long, but it felt like it took me a very long time to realize like, oh, I could look up, you know?
Yeah.
And then I was like, and I said out loud, P1? I was like shocked. But then of course you look into it. There's only like 6 cars that had used softs in that session, Daniel being one of them. So yes, he was the faster of those the 6, softs, but like none of the Red Bulls, Ferraris, they were not on softs. But it was like, oh, that's kind of fun. And then in P2, Lewis was P1. So I was like, practice is good for my guys, you know. I'm glad it doesn't count for anything.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because Red Bull wasn't looking so incredibly threatening in practice. And so people were wondering, is it actually going to be closer?
No.
Well, yeah, no. And I guess closer maybe for everyone but Max, but that's about it. All right, quali. The first thing I want to just say is justice for Otmar. Justice
for Otmar.
I mean,
go download his app, guys.
I would have loved to have seen a shot of Otmar. I think he was in Bahrain. Probably. I would have loved to have just seen him watching that qualifying session and just...
I could see him. Arms crossed. Just a little smirk.
Shrug to the camera. Well, Office style.
I hope Netflix is with him.
I know. I mean, terrible. Absolutely terrible. Yeah. So word had come out, I think I mentioned this, after testing that Alpine was not looking so hot. And that Haas was actually looking not terrible. And
which is a 2 thumbs up for them.
Alpine was probably the worst team on the grid. And I also heard that the car was apparently like 10 kilos overweight. And so people have been wondering, you know, why is there so much carbon fiber? Well, a way that you can save weight on a car is by stripping the paint. And so that might explain why it's a largely carbon fiber livery. So oof. And I was thinking about this. I wonder what Pierre is thinking right now.
Yeah. Fuming.
Because obviously, and I've said this before about Daniel stuff, you cannot judge a driver with hindsight. You can't drive or judge their decision with what you know now. But I do have to wonder, you know, he leaves AlphaTauri at the time to go to Alpine, which seemed like the right call at the time because AlphaTauri, they weren't very good. And Alpine was okay last year. But now...
Yeah.
RB now is decent. They're fine. They're in like an okay position to move forward, but Alpine looks like they're just working their way backwards.
I know.
And
brutal. How long is he there?
That's a good. I actually wonder. I think he might have like a 2+1. So this might be the second. This is the second year. So I think he technically has a third year. Okay. I don't know his exact.
Well, here's hoping that, you know, Chiefs and Ryan Reynolds money will help something.
Money to improve. Yeah. I mean, I got to get better people that work to work for them. And I honestly bring back Cyril.
That would change the course of our life.
This is the other thing that confuses me. You know, Daniel left Renault in like a whatever, maybe not the best situation, but that year they got 2 or 3 podiums. I think 2 with Daniel, 1 with Esteban actually. Yeah. And they then just were like, okay, well, Daniel's leaving, so now we're just going to send Cyril on his way too. It's why?
Like, why would, I just don't understand why you would do that.
He was doing a great job, and I will never forgive. I mean, the way that this sport just cuts the legs out of every great team principal we've ever had.
I know.
You know, Gunter gone, Otmar gone, Cyril gone.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because we were talking earlier.
Friends tossed.
About.
I think he retired. I don't think he chose.
Frenchy toast.
Yeah.
About how James has basically come in and said, like, look, James Vowles for Williams, for if you've been under a rock, but which you haven't. But like, I don't care about this year. I don't care about next year. Like, we have the next 2 years to basically break everything, start from scratch. I don't like. He's like, if we get points, that's great. But I'm not trying to. Like, I'm trying to fix this thing now. What he has on his side is a like legacy team that's been in the shitter for years. So he has the advantage of being able to do those things and like the blessing to break those things without fear of losing his job. But you know, Otmar said it. And like, look, at the end of the day, like Otmar might not be the guy for Alpine, but he's completely spot on when he says, look, you can't just fix this overnight. Like, I don't know what planet these men are living on where they think that like, oh, it's the wrong person in charge. It's like, that is a piece of the puzzle. And like, sometimes, yes, the leadership is causing an issue. Like, to me, when I look at Haas, like, they tried so many different things and then they finally said, okay, like, maybe we need to change leadership. Whereas Alpine just seems like they're just like, well, let's just keep trying.
Yeah, they're getting impatient.
But what happens, and like, I've, like, my team at work, this, like, in the last year and a half, we have seen 4 massive changes in our leadership. Okay, well, that has every time that happens, our whole team has to recalibrate because there's someone else in charge who wants things done a different way, who, you know, wants to try this or needs to report things in a certain way or whatever. And so it's like, well, when you get rid of the head bitch in charge every time, you don't get to get ahead. So that's on that.
I agree. And I do wonder, you know, if there was some sort of Freaky Friday situation and we could just put all women in the positions that men have now in Formula One.
I'd be curious.
I would be curious to see how stuff happens.
For anyone who's about to come out of the woodwork and be like, well, Claire Williams, no.
No. Claire was in a difficult situation herself. And I'm not saying it has to be Claire Williams. I'm just saying.
But she put so much pressure on herself to be the woman to make it right. It's like, dude, it's not on your shoulders. For her father's legacy. Yeah.
Anyway, so that was that on that. Just tough going for Alpine. Impressive performance by Nico Hülkenberg.
Yeah.
Got me a point.
Yeah,
despite the fact that I was not confident about it.
No, but
I was proud of him for that.
Yep, he proved you wrong.
He proved me wrong. It was another Charles and Max battle for pole position. Apparently, Charles' time that he did in Q2 would have actually been fast enough for pole position. Honestly,
which is irrelevant
and honestly, you know what? I'm kind of glad that he's not getting more pole position and then losing the pole position stats, because that was just
Well, yeah, I mean, if everything in the race that happened today went exactly the same, but he was in pole, what a nightmare.
Right. And I think he has like 20. I could be wrong on the exact number, but I think he has 24 something poles to 5 wins.
Ick.
Yikes. Big yeah. And now that's
that mean he's won not on pole, right?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know if he's ever won not on pole. That's a great question.
Thank you. I don't have the answer, but
I don't have the answer either. But
because that's a terrible ratio.
And it's unfair because obviously it's so high because he's such a great qualifier that he puts cars that shouldn't get pole on pole frequently.
Yeah.
You know, but for reference, a person who's not a great qualifier, Daniel Ricciardo, he's had 3 pole positions, but he's had 8 wins.
Right.
So he's got way more wins than he's ever had pole.
Yeah. So during Drive to Survive, I remember Will was like, if you get pole and you can't win the race, that's the biggest failure you can have.
I know. It's a little bit dramatic.
No, it isn't actually. That's especially in this economy with Max Verstappen and the Red Bull. Like, no.
Genuinely.
That's not the biggest failure.
I know.
The biggest victory is getting pole over Max.
Yeah.
Because that's all we can really hope for anymore.
Yeah. So anyway, that was interesting.
Well, it was boring, I thought.
It wasn't great. Yeah, I mean, I think we're still in the early days and a lot. I didn't think it was so boring. I thought it was okay. I thought, the fact that I think Yuki missed Q3 by like 7 thousandths of a second, and it was very tight in that. And I feel, again, it's not the most exciting, but that midfield pack is pretty close, and so that's kind of interesting. But yeah, the Red Bull advantage is so strong that it doesn't really even matter. George had a great qualifying, got himself P3, which was impressive. Again, we go back to, and I think this is how it is for a lot of teams, right? Or just drivers in general. Like, I think some people are really great qualifiers and other people are more race specific. I think George is a great qualifier. I think Lewis is a better racer, pace wise. I think same thing with like a Daniel, Yuki, there's other people who are like that, but George, strong advantage over Lewis. So yeah, congratulations to George.
Yep.
Getting up there on P3.
And to Hannah for pulling George out of the hat.
Yes, exactly. Okay, to the race. No DNFs, which
honestly unexpected. Like I good on everyone after the shit show that was a lot of that race that there wasn't a DNF.
Yeah, but also just keeps it's just, yeah. And they talked about this in testing too, that the reliability of the cars has gotten so good over the years that so few cars DNF these days compared to even just a handful. Like I think even there was some season fairly recently, maybe within the last 10 years, where people were DNFing all the time, and it just doesn't, a car just doesn't break down like it used to. And I'm not saying I necessarily want cars, but there is an element of that keeps it.
Yeah. Well, it's the yellow flag and the safety car. It's like anytime we can kind of get everyone bunched back
and the
up
risk
together,
factor of it too.
Fun. Yeah.
Like, yes, it might affect you, like your driver might DNF, but I feel like nowadays, I mean, we talked about how Max hasn't DNF'd in over
2 years,
like almost. You know, a car, a typical driver may have one or two.
Yeah.
From a purely mechanical, like, car problem issue, not just like a crash or something, which I don't know if they should make it so it's like
less reliable.
Yeah. But it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
So what we did have the Nico and Lance incident. I'm surprised more cars. I did notice that there were some cars that kind of got like stuck behind them. Like I think the Stakes and I think maybe Daniel.
Yeah. I think Valtteri like tapped the back of Hulk's car. Not enough for anything significant, but yeah, but they all got caught up in it.
The fact that I guess Nico did have to change his front wing, but the fact that they both were able to keep driving and Lance got points. I mean, I was kind of surprised by that. We thought potentially Logan might DNF, but then he somehow
he kept going.
Figured that out.
Yeah, because I think he had like a brake issue or something, and went off.
The Williams were just like hanging on for dear life. I mean, Alex Albon's steering wheel being like too hot.
Yeah, well, and I guess so. I heard they got a new steering wheel. I think, and like the screen's different or something, and it's caused lots of problems for them.
It's not great.
At one point, Alex was like, "I can't even see everything. This dashboard's all messed up."
Yeah.
I wish you would have said
that's really exciting. It's good to hear when you're going like 150 miles per hour and you're trying to figure out your steering wheel situation. That's very much a lot of stress. The Charles and Carlos little battle, interesting.
I loved it.
Yeah,
Carlos was like, hold my beer.
Carlos was on it. Carlos was definitely on it. Not the best race for Charles Leclerc. No. He was, I think, maybe managing an issue at some point. I think Charles is very much also the kind of driver, we've seen this before, where some races he just isn't quite on it. Yeah. And then sometimes he's amazing. But there always are those handful of races where it's just not maybe the right rhythm. He just, I don't know. And Carlos is obvious. I mean, literally is driving for his life, driving to survive.
I mean, he has nothing to lose. What I do think, I was thinking about this when we were watching the race. What I do think is interesting is there's a lot to say for like, because I was texting a friend of mine and he was just like, he's driving for his life, like he's driving for a seat, but if he's not listening, or if he comes across as not listening, how does that like translate to a team that wants him? You know what I mean? Because I think on the one hand you're like, he fights, he does what he needs to do, blah blah blah, but then it's kind of like, well, is he listening? Is he being a team player? I guess. But I mean, to me, the reality of today is that he needed to be in front of Charles. Like there were very few instances in which he should have stayed behind Charles. He
was faster. Yeah. And we'll get to, some other situations where that it wasn't always, working out that way. But yeah, and I mean, I've talked a lot about my feelings about Carlos as of recently, and I would say the fatigue has sort of died down. It's not so much fatigue anymore as it's just indifference. Yes, very much so.
That makes me kind of sad for you.
I know.
But I appreciate your honesty and transparency.
It's okay.
See how nice it is to be transparent?
I will always be transparent on this podcast.
I know.
I mean, my time, my love, my dedication, it's going so many ways, and
you give I think a higher volume of your emotional capacity to fewer people.
Yes.
And that's got to be really burdensome. So I totally understand you needing to eliminate one of them. Because I give less emotional
to
currency
lots,
to
which I wish
number.
cannot tell you how badly I wish I could be like that.
Yeah, I do sometimes miss like I don't have the Harry Styles level
Hannah,
obsession for any of these boys. I mean, it's close, but like nothing compares.
It's so much better on that side of the fence. Don't ever wish for it.
It
is a life ruiner.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I just always think back like in COVID when I literally regressed and was just.
Yeah, but then imagine
it's all consuming.
Imagine it's like, oh, and if he doesn't do well, then like you'll never see it from him again.
Oh yeah, no,
you
I
know
want that.
Yeah, that's how intense that's how anxiety inducing it can feel.
Oh, wow.
It is not.
So sorry.
I know. I this whole weekend I was just like, it's a catch 22.
Because it's interesting. Speaking of 22, what's interesting is that I don't think that it's the same feeling, because mine were feelings of like heartbreak, of like a lost love. But when Taylor and Travis started dating, like the actual emotional reaction I had, I feel like sometimes that's how you react when Daniel doesn't do well, and I couldn't handle that on such a consistent basis. And so you're truly a hero, and that's
why I've had mental health problems the last 3 years. Like, I'm kind of joking, but
I know it's not a joke. That's why I'm laughing. Which, sorry, I don't want you to have mental health problems, but
I'm trying to manage it.
Yeah. That's good.
It's okay.
Hot girl walks.
I think the place I've come to is like, whether he stays or he eventually leaves, like, it's okay either way, because I'll get my mental health back.
Got it.
Or, I guess he's here, but like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Perfect.
Yeah. We're just working through all of that.
I want Brooke Averick to have us on her podcast.
I know.
Obsessed with
we can talk about Formula One.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Okay. Valtteri's terrible pit stop from hell.
That was pretty bad.
Terrible.
Well, and I was just shocked that he kept going. Moving on. I thought his tire was on fire.
50-something second pit stop. I mean, Valtteri's the king of the slow pit stop. Mm-hmm. Of course, these things always have to happen to the guys like Valtteri or the ones,
right?
But never happens to other people on the grid, which is just always an unfortunate situation. Yeah. Not a ton else to talk about, except I feel like the big piece we need to talk about is the Yuki, Daniel, RB situation.
Yeah.
Because there's already a lot of chatter. I've been seeing, I was looking on Twitter and stuff after the race. Already a lot of just Yuki fans, Daniel fans. Mm-hmm. It's not looking so pretty. I will say, well, let's just break down what happened, and then we can kind of go into the situation. So Yuki obviously started ahead of Daniel, mm-hmm. and they were on the same strategy, starting on softs, pitted for hards. And they were relatively close to each other by the second stint, but Yuki was still ahead. And then it seemed like RB pitted Yuki too late.
Yeah. And
they pitted him for hard tires.
Mm-hmm.
They pitted Daniel, but they pitted him for soft tires. And I think the sort of toss-up was, will the soft tires last until the end of the race, right? You have the tire advantage at the beginning, but will they be able to make it to the end?
We also had Carlos asking, like, when are the hards going to get better than the softs?
Yes. So there was a strategy call that had to be made for some of these teams, and most teams did the start on softs and then do hard.
Mm-hmm.
But Daniel went on to the softs, and so strike one, RB pits Yuki too late, gets him out of position. I think he lost a position in that pit stop.
Yeah.
And now you have Daniel, who's right behind Yuki pretty much, on a softer tire. And there was maybe 12, 15 laps to go, something like that. And Daniel is just gaining. I think he was getting 0.7, 0.8 seconds a lap. And the gap just immediately closes. And there's probably at this point, I don't know, maybe 6 laps to go, 7 laps to go. I don't know the exact number. And he's right behind Yuki, and Yuki is battling Kevin. Now,
trying to battle.
Kevin. At this point, Daniel has the faster tire, okay? Correct. And I think this is where we said this, how many times? 2 things can be true at the same time. Was Yuki screwed over by the strategy?
Yes.
Yes. 100% he was. He should not have been in that position that he was in. That is factual. Was the strategy probably the wrong strategy ultimately? Yes. But that's just the way that the situation transpired, and that's how it ended up. Was Daniel faster than Yuki?
Yes.
Yes. And not because Daniel is a much faster driver it's just because he was on the preferred tire. That was a faster tire.
Right.
Because I've been seeing people being like, Daniel wasn't faster than Yuki. Or it's like, well, he was
in that moment because the strategy was messed up.
Yeah.
Fine. Done. That's his own issue over
yes.
here. It caused Daniel to be faster than Yuki in the moment.
Yes.
And because of that cause and effect,
yes,
we need to let Daniel by.
Right. So at this point, it's like, well, we have a handful of laps to go. It looks like all these people in front, Kevin, I think Joe, their tires were starting to die off, and they're thinking if we can get Daniel through, he might be able to catch some of these guys and get into a better position. And as you don't know, I mean, there could be a DNF or something in the last couple of laps that knocks one of the people in the top 10 out that could have pushed someone into points. And for a team like a midfield team, every point
matters.
Yeah, it makes a difference. But Yuki is not obliging.
And being stubborn.
They took way too long to kind of even, or it seemed like they took too long to even approach the subject, to even ask the question. And essentially, they waited too long. Now, Yuki had every right to be upset with his team.
Absolutely.
I would be as well.
But
Yuki also was being immature, and he was not being a team player, and he was taking out his frustration on Daniel.
Yeah.
Right.
Which ultimately hurts everyone.
Right. So as they're playing this game of, to allow him through or not, you see Max Verstappen coming through, and obviously he's about to lap them. But when that happens, a blue flag is shown to the cars that are in the way of, like, because they're not actually racing each other. And so those cars have to move out of the way. And anytime that happens, you lose time. So by the time they actually let Daniel through, they then had to move out of the way for Max. Yeah. And so then they'd lost the time to Kevin.
Yeah.
And it was like a wasted effort. And it was just, obviously anyone who listens to this show knows I love Daniel, and they know I love Yuki too. Mm-hmm. I did not like the fact that they were fighting with each other and angry at each other, but also
they're two. I think what's difficult is that they're two separate, and it's hard when you're in the moment. Obviously, we're not there. We're on the couch. We're totally out of it. But you go, okay, Yuki has a total right to be frustrated about the strategy issue. Daniel would be the same way. Anyone would be the same way.
Yes.
However, that's happened. We can talk about that later. The situation that has put us in is that Daniel is faster than you in this moment, and only this moment, on the race track today. And if we want a chance at potentially getting points, you need to move.
Yep.
Period. Case closed.
Yep.
And I think it's really, when, adrenaline's high, emotions are high, like, you can't, I think Yuki would be able to hear that in a conversation like this and go, yeah, of course, that's what you do.
Right.
But obviously, like, in the moment, you don't connect the dots like that because you're just pissed off. And it was annoying.
Well, I saw too that Daniel said, and of course they did, but he said that they talked about this before the race, and they had talked about, if this is a situation we find ourselves in, this is what has to happen. And yeah, again, in the moment, it's hard to wrap your head around. But
when I was like, Yuki was trying to prove that he could overtake Kevin, but he wasn't, and he couldn't, and he was taking too long to do it. And so it's like, okay, well, so you can't then. But Daniel's almost gotten you several times, and the only reason he can't is because you won't move out of the way.
Yeah. Right.
Annoying.
Yeah. And then of course everyone's like they gave Daniel the better strategy, which they did, but I don't necessarily know that it was intentional. It was just how it fell. But also that's just how it is sometimes. These things happen and it's not always fair. I don't know. It was just a bit frustrating. And I think Daniel would have passed Kevin. Would he have passed Joe for P11? Like, probably. I don't know. I guess. But I just hope that they can work that out and not have these problems in the future. Because when you are a midfield team, not that they scored points today, but 1 point, that makes it the difference. And you do have to do more team playing in that middle because that could make all the difference for your
And honestly,
season.
like it could have been just as easily like the other way around.
Totally, 100%, 100%. Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm not saying Daniel is faster than, like, if they were on this. I'm not even sure what the pace difference was when they were both on the same set of tires and like all that stuff.
I'm pretty sure Daniel was behind Yuki like the whole race until
he
this
was.
moment. So
he
it's
was.
Like, I just don't think like they made an error in the, and I don't know why you would ever do this intentionally, but they made an error on the timing of the pit stop.
Yeah,
clearly, and then Yuki sunk the rest of it.
Right, exactly. Like as you said, just because it was like a domino effect of wrong decisions, which is unfortunate. I'm sure we'll get more. We were recording this immediately after the race was over, so I'm sure we'll get some interviews, and I'm curious to see what they say.
Yeah, both of them.
Post race, and just I think they're both two people that like they'll
cool off.
They'll drop. Yeah, they'll be okay, but it's just not a great. And speaking of someone who's sort of they're both kind of driving for their lives in a way. Like they both have a lot to prove. Sure. And obviously Daniel wanting the Red Bull seat, Yuki wanting to keep a seat or figure out, because it feels like he's sort of like chopped. I mean, Red Bull doesn't seem to have any interest in keeping him around for the actual Red Bull seat. And so I think he's trying to like prove himself, obviously, and interesting to watch that kind of unfold all around. Okay, should we do fan and phone next, or should we do questions?
We're not going to talk about Max.
Oh, well, Max won.
No, my favorite part of the race was when Max came out of his final pit stop and there were literally no other cars in sight. Not one. Looked like he was just out there doing like testing by himself.
Quite something.
Let's do fan or phone.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Yes.
Go with your fan.
So it's like lame, but it's bigger. But like it's just that it's all back. And I think just F1 in general, because for me it's like when Harry Styles has a new album coming out and he's back and he's doing press tours, or Taylor is on tour, and so we just get so much content. It makes me so happy. It's been a very hard honestly, this 2024 has been a bitch, and it's just been really nice to just have like community again and
fun.
All be like giggling at these stupid little boys that we love so much, and it just feels very wholesome and happy to have it all back,
to have my anxiety back.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because it was like so exciting leading up to today, and then today I was like, oh, I forgot that I get sweaty before these races start. That's stupid.
Before qualifying, I was like, I hate this. Like, I actually hate this sport so much.
I was so excited because I was like working during quali, and I was like, man, I focus really well when these cars are going down the track. I feel like I could fall asleep to like, maybe I should start just listening to just the sound of the car,
like on the like when they change gears.
Well, Ash Vandelay does these. I've seen at least one or two of them, but she's like, her brain at the track is just peace. It's quiet.
Oh yeah, it's like Zen mode.
Yeah, a little bit of an ADHD brain that it's just like, oh yeah, well when there's so much going on, it's just quiet.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
Yeah.
My fan is to go back to something we talked about earlier, and to kind of put it into a
context.
Not context, but like I guess to compare it to something that we know very well. I was thinking about, so when I was seeing the pictures of Lando and Daniel, specifically the one of them sort of like in a weird, like Daniel's almost like lunging.
Yes.
And, and they're laughing. I was like, this gives me the same feelings, the same like happiness as when Harry Styles and Niall Horan would do content together. Like they're, for me, like the Harry Styles and Niall Horan of F1.
I miss them so much.
Because it's just like, I just always love it. They're different personalities.
Yep.
But I don't really know which one is which, to be honest. I don't. They're really
Lando
not
gives
Harry.
Me Niall energy.
Okay.
I mean, they both kind of have Niall energy.
They're both. It's not a direct comparison.
Yeah.
But it's just the vibes of just like.
That's really funny because I almost wore my Harry and Niall shirt today.
Oh really?
Yeah. Next time.
But it's just that same joy of I love seeing these two people hang out and spend time together, and it just makes me really happy. And
there are two, like there's an interview compilation of the two of them that I watch all the time still.
Yeah, I know.
And then there's one, there's like the Bert, I don't know. There's some radio show they were doing forever ago. They're like in this big room. Harry's wearing a green hat. They're both in like tank tops. And it's my favorite interview of the two of them. I watch it at least once a month.
It's
I miss those days.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's very, I was going to say something else regarding, was it One Direction or Lando and Dan? Oh, I was going to say too, again, people who listen to this know how much I love Pierre and Yuki. Like they will always be, I think, number one in my heart. But I've realized Daniel and Lando are very close for me. But it wasn't so much at the time. It's been post.
Now. Yeah. And I think, and we've talked about this before too, but I think it like they needed to not be teammates anymore. Yeah.
To be friends. And I think the Pierre Yuki is more like pure, I think Pierre obviously does care about him, but more so from the Yuki side of things. Whereas I don't think like Lando and Daniel, it's not so pure,
Yeah, it's not the same.
No, but it's just that same joy, happiness. Okay, Fo.
Red Bull, all of it. This week has been a bummer, and as a Red Bull, I don't know if I'm a Red Bull fan, but fan of Max. Because I also am just like, what does this do to RB? Which I can't tell you how easy it's been to transition to say after all the hubbub and all the hatred we threw. I'm just like, oh yeah, RB.
It's easy.
It's very easy. Basically, it doesn't even matter anymore. But yeah, I think it's just been a bummer. And I think for a while, I tried to deny how annoying truly annoying it is that Max is the only person on the track. And today, like, really, I don't know if it's just the culmination of everything of like not Max, but like you guys don't deserve this right now.
Right.
But really everybody but one person does. Well, two people, I would say. Horny Spice and Helmet should just retire together.
I know. I mean, I do wonder if it's just like, all right, Red Bull just goes on pause. As a team, as an organization, we just put you over here for a bit.
No, we can't do that.
Why?
Well, because then what happens to
Daniel and Yuki? They're their own team. I'm just saying.
I know, but it's a familia.
No, they get to take the seats, the Red Bull seats.
Imagine Yuki in the Red Bull.
I would love to see it. I would genuinely be so curious. I think
too.
Yuki is very.
I meant that genuinely.
No, I know, but I think he is very underestimated. I really believe that. Like, I think people act like he's. I think he's very underestimated.
I think sometimes. I'm probably guilty of this, but like, forget that he's one of the best drivers in the world. He's one of 20 people.
Yeah.
He's good at what he does. He's a little unhinged.
He's unhinged, but I'm saying compared to the other drivers, like I think everyone feels like Yuki's not. I'm just saying I would be very curious to see him going up against I would be curious to see how he does against, other drivers on the grid.
Yeah.
Like, I think people underestimate his abilities. All I'm trying to say. Yeah, my foe is the Christian Horner of it all, and I'm over it.
Yeah.
I'm just
tired of.
I'm tired of it. I'm just the whole thing. It is just not good. Okay, we'll do our we'll discuss our draft from last week, or our picks, and then we'll do our new draft, and then we can get to the final question. So for those who missed it, if you didn't listen to our bonus episode that came out on Wednesday,
you should go listen to it.
Well, it might be a little bit, dated at this point.
It's still fun.
It's still fun. But we decided that we're going to do I don't know, it's not a draft. It's like a driver drawing, essentially. Every race, like going into every race weekend, where Hannah and I will pick a driver from our little trusty Ferrari hat, and whoever we pick will be our driver for the weekend. If our driver qualifies in the top 10, if they get 10th, 1 point, 9th, 2 points, 8th, 3, all the way up to pole position, which we get 10 points. And then whatever points, if our driver gets points during the race, we get those points as well. For those who missed it, I got Nico Hülkenberg and Hannah got George Russell. So I got 1 point this week because, actually I need to write this down, because Nico qualified P10, had a great showing.
He did.
And then Hannah, so George qualified 3rd, so that's 8 points. And then where did he finish in the race? 4th?
Don't remember.
We'll double check that. 4th?
4th or 5th.
Okay. Well, I'll just say it's 4th, which would have been 12 points. So you would have gotten 20. So Hannah has a 19-point advantage, but only race 1. So.
And then we can't have the same driver. Did you say that already? We can't have the same driver 2 weekends in a row, but we can have them again in the season. So like if I pick George again today,
have to redraw.
I'd have to redraw.
So this is going to be for Saudi Arabia, which is next week. Again, the races, it's the same schedule. The reason it's on Saturday is because of Ramadan.
Yeah.
So same schedule as last week. Media day Wednesday, practice Thursday, quali Friday, race Saturday. Hannah's drawing her driver for Saudi Arabia. Lewis, you're the Mercedes vibe.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, man, Lewis, come on. Did you get Maxwell?
Yuki!
Yay!
Alrighty. Well, still may not get points, but we'll see.
That's
all right.
not the spirit.
We'll see. Saudi Arabia, Hannah, Lewis,
LH44,
and Zoe Yuki. All right. We will monitor that closely. You put your paper back in the. Perfect. Okay. That's that on that. Let's get to some of the questions you guys have left.
Sorry for anyone watching. There's something in my eye and it's driving me insane.
Oh no.
But Hannah, my friend Hannah, she hates when I touch my eye. So I just want to apologize for anyone because I have misophonia. I don't like loud noises, like mouth noises. And so I get triggered when I've listened to podcasts and people are eating. So if anyone's watching me touch my eye. Anyway.
Okay. Do you think the situation between Daniel and Yuki was unfair?
I think they'll be able to take a step back and understand all the pieces. But I think in the moment, it's always hard to get your head around.
And I think multiple things
were true
at once. Yeah. Yuki got a bad strategy. That sucked for him. But then Daniel was also screwed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was. And I think we go back and forth a lot about, is driver swapping? Should that be allowed? I think when it has to do, I think there are certain situations, but I think in a case like this where a driver is faster and on a faster strategy, frankly, and there's a potential to get a point, I think it is, I personally think it is fair.
Yeah, and I guess to me too, like, I don't know if we need to like say it has to be this official, like, okay, Yuki, move over. But like the way that Carlos passed Charles today, I don't know if he had permission to do that, but it's kind of like, Daniel could have passed Yuki many times.
Yeah.
And just...
Well, but it was also like wasting time. If he had to keep wasting time on... He could have passed Yuki on pace, but it would have taken... Time was of the essence. They needed to move quickly.
Yeah.
And so they ended up wasting too much time. And it was just... Yeah, and then apparently too, I saw this, that at the end of the race, like during the final, like when they were doing their kind of cool down lap thing, Yuki kind of like cuts in front of Daniel and kind of locks up and kind of almost like he was being kind of a dick. I
don't like that, and I would say that to anybody.
No, I don't like it either.
It's
like
annoying. He
was being very immature. So it's a lot of things to work on.
Oh well.
Someone said, is George actually a good driver? Do I hate him for another reason, like being boring? I think George is a good driver.
Yeah. Also, did you see his Iron Man impression today? He's killing it on the grid with those glasses.
I think George is a good driver. I don't think he's as good as, obviously today he did well. And so much of it, again, obviously has to do with where you qualify, and that affects your positioning in the race and all that kind of stuff, right? So George qualified P3, Lewis was like P8 or something. So that obviously made a big difference in the race itself. I don't think George is a better driver than Lewis, but I think he's good. I think he's a good, solid driver.
And I think, like, overall, I don't think he's better than Lewis, but I think there are many races where he is driving better than Lewis.
Yes.
For one reason or another.
Right. It's the same way, like, I don't think, I mean, obviously biased, I don't think Carlos is a better driver than Charles, but I think Carlos...
There are a lot of races in which he's much better.
He's a faster driver. That happens. Let's see what else. Poor Logan. He was doing so well. Hopefully they figure out what happened to the car. I wouldn't say he was doing... I mean, he was doing okay.
For Logan,
he was doing okay. He was doing fine.
Well,
yeah, he was doing fine.
Yeah, and it was a bummer. But I'm glad he... Even though I'm sure he... You know, I feel like it's probably mixed emotions. I'm glad he didn't have to DNF.
Yes.
Because that would have been a bummer of a first.
Someone said Sainz villain era.
Here for it.
Yeah.
He has quite literally nothing to lose.
Exactly. So much about... Yeah, it's still recording. So much about Yuki and Daniel. Will this affect the ratings if Max keeps dominating?
It's an interesting... I saw someone ask about that in our fan amp chat. And it's interesting because I could see it. Or like maybe they're watching less races or only, you know, maybe they're not waking up for the early ones anymore. Mm-hmm. But I do think like today, the first, I don't know if half, but like the first, I don't know, 10, 15 laps of the race were really exciting, even though Max was gone. I think, I don't know. I mean, obviously we have a job to do, so we'll be watching all of them. But I think...
Yeah. And I'm one of those people now where it's like, I don't love that Max wins all the time, of course, but I can still enjoy the race despite Max winning because I have other people that that I watch for and I'm excited for to see how they perform and how they do. And I think it's one of those things where I think the casual F1 fans will start to fade away.
Absolutely.
The ones who are diehard and love it regardless will obviously stick around. But I think, and like any sport, you need those casual people to pay attention. You can't survive, I think, as a sport with just the diehards. You still need the people who are like, oh yeah, I'm going to check that out because, you know, I've heard there's a great battle for the championship or whatever.
Yeah. And you know, being optimistic here, things could fall apart for Red Bull soon, you know? Like maybe we'll get a DNF from Max for the first time in almost 2 years.
Or teams will pick up the development. We'll see a big jump like McLaren had last year, maybe a team. I mean, again, it's 24 races. We have to we cannot make like super specific judgment calls and everything after one race. There's still so much to go. Time. There's a lot to figure out. So
23 more races.
23 more as of today, and I think they will win a lot of them. Yeah, I think they will probably win.
But I think like when we were doing our predictions, I think I said Max would only win 14.
I know, I was being too optimistic.
I was being optimistic too, but anyway, we'll see.
Someone said, "Are you team Daniel or team Yuki?"
I'm team. They were both right and they were both wrong. Daniel was never wrong today.
He wasn't wrong.
They were both had a right to be frustrated.
But I'm team Daniel in the sense that
Yuki was being stubborn and immature. Yeah.
But
I understand why Yuki was frustrated. But
yes,
you can't let your frustration mess with the rest of the team.
Correct.
So I guess team Daniel.
Yeah.
For this particular
moment in time. Excited to see how that transpires. Okay, so that is it for our Bahrain GP recap. As I mentioned, we're going to be, so I believe we're recording this on a Saturday. I think I'm going to get it up in time for Sunday. So this will come out a day early because typically our episodes come out Monday, but given the fact that the race is a day ahead and then the next race weekend will be a day ahead, I figured
adjusting accordingly.
Let's just give you guys the goods, you know, ASAP. So we're going to put out if you were around last year, we did a pyramid ranking for every race where we kind of just gave our official pyramids for the race itself, our top performer, low end performers, people who just shit the bed, frankly. And we're going to take that segment and we're just going to do our own little bonus video for the day after every race. So obviously, because this is coming out on Sunday, you're going to get the pyramid ranking video Monday. But for normal races, it will be
Tuesday.
Monday, race recap, Tuesday, pyramid ranking video. It will only be on YouTube, so you'll have to watch it there. And I mean, I'll post all this on social media too. So if you're like, what, Monday, Tuesday, Sunday, confused, I'll just share everything there. But yeah, please watch those and interact with them because, we're trying to up our YouTube game. Yeah. Trying to become real official YouTubers. And if there's anything
else that you want to see us do on YouTube that's more than just podcasts, let us know. I mean, we've got some ideas brewing, but we do enjoy the short form YouTube stuff.
We've been asked for we haven't done another Taylor and Travis video in a long time.
We need to do that.
We haven't done one since they won the Super Bowl.
Wow.
I know. So yeah, I guess we'll get on that at some point. It's been a bit, we're booked and busy. It's
and I'm kind of been waiting for them to be in Europe. Like, I know he went to Australia, but I
thought you meant F1.
No. But I think that that's 6 months from now.
That's like in May.
Wait for that.
Yeah.
I hope they're in Miami.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys, manifest for us, please.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. The good thing is we got a race weekend right around the corner.
Literally.
We can just go boom right into another one, which is great. I don't love an off right now at the start of the season. I don't want an off week. I'm like, let's just keep the good vibes rolling. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about this too. Someone asked us if we would ever do a live stream or watch a quality, on, I don't even know if we would do Twitch or something, or watch a race, a live stream or something. And so I thought maybe we could do something if we wanted to watch Australia together, because it starts at 11 p.m. We could do with our pajamas.
Oh yeah, look, slumber party.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, we'll send out invites
for our Aussie guys. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just brainstorming on the podcast, but there's something that we could do in the future.
Yeah, let us know if you'd watch that.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll also probably put a poll out because maybe you haven't made it this far in the episode. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Hope you have a great week.
Asante.